Greetings and welcome back to the Galley of the Sun. So recently we were in Mazatlan, Mexico, and like any normal American tourist in Mazatlan, we checked out their Walmart. Now at their Walmart, we were there to get some beef to make carne asada. Greg did that in a previous episode. And as Greg was looking at the beef, I walked around and looked to see what do they have different that I haven't had before that I might want to try. And I ran across some Argentine Chorizo. Now, this is way different than Mexican chorizo or Spanish chorizo. Spanish chorizo is cured and when you cut it thin, almost looks like a salami. Mexican chorizo can be cased. Most of the time it isn't. Very highly spiced meat. You can use beef, you can use pork. I prefer the pork.
Pork is amazing.
Both of those, Mexican and Spanish chorizo, are typically used in some other dish. The chorizo, great meat for tacos, tostados, burritos, chimichangas, you name it. Spanish chorizo goes fantastic in stews and soups. We made a Hungarian stew before with the chorizo, the Spanish chorizo, and it's absolutely amazing. But I was intrigued. This Argentine chorizo didn't have that big of a red tint to it, at least the one that I had there. Cooked it up, and it was much closer to me, kielbasa than it was chorizo, but it was absolutely delicious, so we knew we had to make it when we got back here. So I did my research on the interweb and found several different recipes, pick and chose out of which one made sense for our tastes, and here we go. Here is our Galley of the Sun take on Argentine chorizo. One of the first things about Argentine chorizo is almost every recipe had a combination of 3 different meats. It had pork, like pork shoulder or Boston butt. It had beef, like chuck, and then it also had bacon. So let's get to making this. First of all, in my freezer, I had some bags of bacon bits from our homemade bacon that we made way back in 2001.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
You can check the episode out here. We still make it that way. Whiskey, bacon, absolutely amazing. So I'm going to use these chunks. I need about, let's talk about that real quick. I'm making about 20 pounds today. The recipe down below is for about 5 pounds, but in my mind, when you're making sausage, you got to get so many things out, you got to get so many things dirty, you might as well make a lot, right? So that's why we're doing 20 today. First thing we're going to do is dump those bacon bits into our pan here. All right, there's the bacon part of it. Now let's work on the beef. Now for the beef and the pork, we visited our fine friends at Traub's Butcher Shop in Surprise, Arizona. Chad hooked us up with some good stuff. And here I have a 10-pound beautiful hunk of chuck roast. We're going to get that cut up to where it's going to fit in our grinder. As I get these to the size I want, chuck them in with the bacon. All right, now for our pork. Got about a 11.5 pound pork shoulder here, but it's got a bone in it. I need about 8-ish pounds to get this mixture right. Again, from our good friends at Traub's Butcher Shop. All right, so same thing, except I'm cutting around a bone this time, just getting it into strips that will feed easy into my grinder. And this is where a lot of our fat's going to come from for the sausage. All right, so now we got all of our meat cut up. Now I need to add the salt. For 20-pound recipe, it's about 120 grams of kosher or sea salt you want to use. So getting this salted down, getting it all mixed up, and then chucking it into the refrigerator, or in my case a cooler because I don't have room. And letting it set for at least an hour. You can go overnight, but it's going to help us a lot with the texture of the sausage. So add your salt and then get it all mixed up as well as you can. Chuck it somewhere cold and we'll see in about an hour. The salted meat has been sitting in the cooler for about an hour. You can't see any more crystals. Ready for the next step. Now, we've done a few sausage episodes here on the Galley of the Sun. We've done at least 2 different kielbasa episodes. We've made bratwursts. We've made our own hot dogs. We did a Alabama white sauce chicken sausage, which the director absolutely loved. And with all of those, I did it basically the same way. Ground the meat, then mixed in the spices, and then cased them if they were to be cased. Now, when I did my research on this, I saw a common theme in a lot of the recipes for the Argentine Chorizo. Now that we have the meat cubed up and it's been salted, they mix the spices in now before it goes through the grinder. So that's what we're going to do. As I said before, down below in the description is the ingredients, their amounts, and the directions for 5 pounds of Argentine chorizo. We're doing 20, so I'm not going to say these out loud, and frankly, I prepared these 2 hours ago, so I'm not really remembering what the amounts were, but I do know what they are.
It's true.
Coarse ground black pepper is now going in. A lot of paprika. And 20 cloves of minced garlic. I did remember that one. I'm going to get that all mixed into the meat with my grubby little hands, and then we'll move on in the next part, the grinding. Now, as we're setting up our grinder here, if you have different size dies, a big one and a small one, we're going to start with the big one. And then once we get through all the meat, we're going to reserve a quarter of that that's gone through this big die, set it aside, send everything else through the small die, and then mix those together. Again, this is for the texture. Been storing these in the freezer. All the parts are good and cold. So all the meat has gone through the grinder with the big die. Now we're moving down to the small die. I have reserved a quarter of the first grind and it's in a cooler. So now we're going to send this through again. We are down to our last step before the stuffing. So I have my finely ground chorizo here. In goes the coarse ground chorizo. And then 3 cups of red wine. Ideally, in Argentine wine, we don't have any. But the Lushes managed to leave me 3 cups. At least we'll find out. Ah, look, on the 4th bottle we got there. And a little bit left for the director. All right, now the wine goes in. I'm going to mix this with my hands until pretty much all of it has absorbed in the meat. Then it's going to go in a cooler and set for 60 to 90 minutes before we do the stuffing. Oh, I'll tell you, the aroma of those spices as soon as the wine hit them, it's absolutely amazing. I'm making a big freaking mess. All right, our sausage has completed its meat soak. Now it's time for the stuffing, which if you have a stuffer, this is one of the easiest parts of it. If you have to put an attachment onto your meat grinder and do it that way, you can do it, but it is a pain in the tushy bone. Ain't that right, director?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this from Cabela's, 120, 130 bucks, well worth the price. So, the director already expertly has the casing on the tube there. I just need to get the meat. So you can do this 2 different ways. You can do it the way the director's doing it, and each time we get to the length we want, we pause, we twist it off. Or you can do a big coil, just don't fill them fully, and then later you can go back and twist them off. And that way you got a better chance of having equal sized sausages. The director knows her way around a sausage, and she's confident she
I ain't sure, but it sounded dirty.
can get this. Okay. If you do want to pay the big bucks and you don't often have a helper, they do make these with an electric motor and a foot pedal that you can control the speed with. All right, so you get the gist of it. We're going to get these all cased up. They're going to go on a wire rack and then into the refrigerator, or if you don't have any room like us, a cooler. Let them sit overnight. Let that wine soak into everything real good. Tomorrow, we'll get to cooking them, and then we'll get some judgment. We'll see you then. All right, the sausages are cased and sitting in the cooler overnight. The 20 pounds of meat yielded us 73 sausages. We made them just further than bun length, so about 8 inches or so, maybe 10, good and thick. Also, one standard sausage casing package packed in salt was plenty enough for that 20 pounds of meat. Last thing we need to do today is get the chimichurri ready to put on those sausages tomorrow. So, what I have here is some incredibly finely diced flat leaf parsley. You want to go ahead and finely dice it, and then when you think you're done, spend the same amount of time you already did on it. Go through it again. I have, and I'm doing a double recipe on this because we're having about 10-15 people over tomorrow, so I want to have plenty of chimichurri. Got a couple tablespoons of freshly diced oregano. Same way, just diced it over and over again. Got a couple tablespoons of finely diced chipotles and adobo. Got a tablespoon of smoked paprika. Got about 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon of red chili flakes. I love this Flat Iron Pepper Company. They're dark and smoky, absolutely amazing. So I'm going to take those, put them in my hand, and then crush them first, let them release their oils, and then add them to the chimichurri. One more non-liquid ingredient to go, and that is garlic. Doing about 6 to 8 cloves here. Getting them minced and in here. Now, you want to do this overnight. Sure, you can do it day of. It doesn't take all that long. But if you give time for these flavors to meld, yeah, you get a big benefit out of that. So do it the day before. This specifically is red chimichurri. We've got the paprika in there. We've got the chipotles in there. And then we're about to add some red wine vinegar. Now the 2 liquid ingredients. 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil and 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Going to get all that mixed up, get some plastic wrap on it, and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight. We'll see you tomorrow when it's time to get those chorizo on the grill. See you then. All right, smoker is at temperature. You saw me set it 250 degrees. I also lit the smoke tube. So I found when doing kielbasa that I do need the smoke tube because these don't take long to cook. What we're gonna do is get these on. We're gonna do them in 3 different batches. I've got 73 sausages, so I'm doing 25, 25, 22. 25, 25, 23. Public math, whatever. Since it has ground pork in it, I need to make sure they get to 165 degrees. That's all the further that I want to cook them. So then the ones that we don't eat today, I can get in the freezer. Then all we have to do is get them out, warm them up, crisp up the skin, and we're ready to go. So that is the plan. Should take about 45 minutes to an hour. So let's get that first batch on. I got to tell you, when I opened up the cooler, the red wine garlic aroma was absolutely freaking amazing. The sausages are looking great, so let's get these on. All right, we'll check their temperature in about 45 minutes. I'll let you know exactly how long it took. We'll see you then. Okay, so we figured out it takes about an hour at 250 degrees to get these chorizo done. I've got one dressed up here with some of that red chimichurri we made last night. So let's bring in our victim and see how we did. The judgment from Bradley. Pretty good.
Victim, I don't like that. All right. It's a badass looking. Let's see how she does.
Yeah, it's called chorizo, but I liken it more to a kielbasa than a chorizo, but I'll be curious to see what you say and how the chimichurri goes with it.
That's really good. I like that a lot. It definitely adds a lot of flavor to it.
Do you agree that it's closer to a kielbasa than what we're used to as chorizo?
Yeah, well, somewhat. I mean, most chorizo I've had has been in burritos, but
Yeah, way different than Mexican chorizo, that's
yeah.
for sure.
No, this is really good. I like it a lot.
All right. Hey, there you go. All that work was worth it. And that trip to Walmart in Mazatlan, Mexico, that's what gave me this idea. So yeah, when you're in Mexico, go to Walmart. You'll never know what you come up with. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Where are you watching from?
It's about time you started saying like and subscribe.
You know, I don't like to beg. Well, except to the girls.
Okay.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. And until we see you next time, fair winds and following seas.